What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about if people are actually upset about Horizon Forbidden West's review score. So this is something that I had seen on Twitter. Twitter likes to recommend things that you, I guess, have vague interest in, but something that you don't follow or topics you don't participate in. They like to kind of throw those out there, and whenever they kind of recommend the topic video games, I think that's the topic name, it's always fanboys. It's always either Sony fanboys or Xbox fanboys, and it literally never stops. And these people, they do tweets, they get a lot of engagement, and then you click on their followers and they really don't have, now they have more followers than me, so you can dunk on me there, but they don't have many followers and all. It's because really nobody likes them. They just engage with their content because of the I guess the exaggeratory measure of it. So, I've seen this on social media, and I do want to talk about this, and I think this is important. I've mentioned time and time again, review scores, what's the word, everybody? Doesn't matter. Review scores don't, I guess that's a different word, don't matter, okay? Make your own decision, truly. Now, I guess maybe I'm a hypocrite or something because, yes, I would prefer you come to YouTube or listen to YouTubers, or if you want to go based off of me, that's fine. But no, I've always honestly pushed the idea that you guys need to make your own decisions, and you shouldn't be going based off of the IGNs, the Kotakus. Now, some of those are different from each other, right? But you don't need to go based off of them. And really, it's a full circle thing, right? Because I say things like that. I think a lot of people say things like that. And then you'll get the story with Horizon. So what is the story? Well, basically, people are upset, and then you also have the Microsoft. So I would say some Sony people are upset that it didn't get, I think, a 90 or higher, because I think a 90 or higher is considered a must-play on Metacritic. So it didn't get that, whereas Forza got it, but Horizon didn't. I think that's the comparison people are saying. And Horizon got an 89. So I think it literally missed the mark by one point. Not even 1 point, because 1 point would be like a 7 to an 8. So 0.1, that's what it missed it by. So you have that. And then I guess you have Microsoft fanboys on the other side. Now, again, all of these people are losers, and they just talk, and again, they get high engagement, but nobody actually likes them or follows them. And you have the Microsoft people kind of dunking on, the fact that, that's happened, where it's it couldn't get a 90. Okay, again, does 0.1 really matter? No. Is an 89 all that much different than a 90? No. Back in the day, let me tell you a story. Back in my day, when I was younger, and I was growing up on IGN. I really did. That's how I grew up on gaming journalism and gaming news. I went on IGN. I would listen to all the podcasts, the Nintendo one. I even listened to the Xbox one. I listened to Podcast Beyond. That was my all-time favorite game scoop. So I was on IGN. And one of the things I was always against, even back then, when I even believed in I believed in review scores. I don't believe in review scores at all anymore, okay? Over the last maybe 5-6 years, I don't care. But back then I did. But even back then, I never understood, and there's always been that debate in the gaming media circle, what makes a game different from a 9.1 to a 9.2? Or my favorites are always the 6s to the 8s, in 0.6 to 0.8. So what makes an 87 or an 8.7 different than an 8.8? What actually, do they have a chart? And now they do. They kind of do, right? They have a criteria page where it's supposed to help kind of guide them in what they say. I know they have they have people basically read over their review, and they're supposed to give feedback in terms of all right, well, you made it sound so good, but then you gave it this score, and the score doesn't kind of reflect what you say. And that's honestly what those people are supposed to do, and I think that's honestly not a bad idea whatsoever. You know what I mean? But I still just never wrap my head around what is the goddamn difference between an 87 or an 8.7 and an 88 or an 8.8. What actually changes in that 0.1? And that was a huge thing. And remember, I believe IGN, they went back, so they had that. Then they did 0.5, so you could only give a game an 8.5, 9, 9.5, 10, 7.5, set like that. That's all you couldn't give it anywhere in between. Well, then that kind of felt wrong. You know what I mean? Then you were looking at it, you're like, well, what, no game can ever get an 8.3 anymore? And it's like, well, you have to make up your mind. But no, I mean, it feels like something's missing. So what I will say is, I actually do prefer the reviews that allow all numbers. Okay, I didn't like the review where I guess the era where it was only 0.5s. But I also would say, I guess to compromise on all of that, I hate review scores in general, because ultimately And people have said this. I will give IGN credit, or people in IGN that have said this, and others, right? What really should matter in reviews is what you say. You know what I mean? When I do reviews, I don't even actually, I forget. I'll be flat out honest. I forget most times to give a definitive, you should get this game, or you should not get this game, or you should watch this movie, or you should not. Half the time, I don't even think I say it. And when I first started the channels, and I first started doing it, that was kind of my main thing. I don't give scores, but I would try to say at the end, like, yes, I love it, so you should go, you know what I mean? Like something like that. Now, I would say, make it clear how I stand. And ultimately, I you know, at the end of the day, I think that's the most important thing. You should be able to tell if you're listening to me or listening to anybody based off of their words and their excitement level or whatever, how they're describing it, or if, you know, going to Kotaku or Polygon or any of these, right? You should be able to tell based off of the words if this game is for you or not for you, or if they, maybe not even that, but if they enjoyed it or they didn't enjoy it. It shouldn't come down to the score. It shouldn't, right? So I know that's kind of like a history lesson. That's more of like a psychology thing on the history of, you know, video game reviews. But no, I really think that's where it comes down on. You know, a difference specifically here, right? Again, the people that are making it a bigger deal than it has to be, and by the way, the deal that it has to be is nothing. There's no story here. There's no, like, nothing is controversial here. I got an 89. An 89 is what the first game got. It actually, like, I would say that's the most surprisingly funny thing about the entire thing, is it literally, and kind of like weird, like it's kind of odd how that happened, right? Is it literally matched the scores for the first game, which is, you know, you don't really get that very often. It's very odd that a game in a series would repeat. Maybe like Call of Duty, right? Because there's so many of them. But something like this, back-to-back games get back-to-back scores. Kind of cool, kind of different, kind of weird. That's all. That's the biggest story to me. I don't, you know, if it got an 88 or an 87 or 86 or 90, 91, 92, it really, you know, I get, like, maybe the 9s do signal something to some people. But again, then you go into that, right? Some reviews, a 9, or some sites, or some even people, some personalities, a 9 is different to one person than another. Another reason why I think it's garbage. I know to some, 5 on their you know, rating thing is average. So if you give the game a 5, which would probably be perceived by most, I would say most, I would honestly go that controversial. I think if people see a 5, that really, like, raises a red alarm and, like, oh my dear God, I can't get this game anymore because I got a 5. But some people and some sites, 5 would be considered average. So like a 6 or a 7 is actually, like, good, like, pretty, like, you know what I mean? But like a 6 and 7, again, when we see a 6 and 7, do you immediately think it's such a great game? No, you know what I mean? You don't. That's just how it is. I'm not saying if it's right or wrong. That's just how it is. So, well, I will say, I don't, again, I think it all kind of contributes to this very messed up situation where, again, you're having people argue because it didn't get 0.1. But again, even if it did, even if it got a 90, what is the difference between, can you tell me? And again, I would pose these questions to these fanboys on Twitter, right? What actually is the difference between an 89 and 90? Like, oh, wow, it's got a 90 now. It has a 9 in it. Well, actually, an 8.9 also has a 9 in it. You know, I'm obviously joking, but, you know, what does that mean? What's the difference? Now, yes, maybe there's a difference between, I'm sure there is, between like an 89 and say like a 95 or 100. But again, there's also sites that have given Horizon a perfect score. I think that's when you have to kind of, I would say, read the individual sites. So it's a mess. Again, the best way of doing it, I think people got confused. You know, I defended the Uncharted movies review scores, and people were saying, well, how can you even, number one, how could you defend it when you haven't seen it yet? And also, how can you defend, you know, a movie like this? I'm not defending the movie. In this case, I'm not even defending Horizon, even though I very much like Horizon, right? I'm not even defending them. I'm just defending the idea that stop listening or reading. Well, okay, you do you. You do you. I won't tell you what to do. But, you know, to put so much emphasis and credibility or whatever on these scores is pointless, right? Don't make up your own mind. Now, if your own mind is, well, I want to read 10 different sites, 10 different scores, and I'll make my mind up of it, then that's, you know, then you do you. You know what I mean? That's that situation. But I don't know. I just, like, don't go based off of scores. I'm sure there are some examples, right? But not everyone. Like, even games, like, say The Last of Us Part 2. What's that? Like a 93, 94, something like that on Metacritic? Do you think everybody loves that game? No. It seems like every critic loved that game, but did every fan love that game? No, they did not. So that is, I mean, that's a it's an outlier. You know what I mean? Not every game, I would say a lot of games that are in like the high 90s or mid 90s kind of are unanimously thought of as good games, but not all of them. And again, there's games that get 6s, 7s, 8s that are game of the year to some people, that are their favorite games of all time. One of my favorite games of all time, Life is Strange. I don't even know it. I think that game got like an 80. You know what I mean? It didn't get a high score. You know what I mean? Same thing with low games. I mean, I'm sure there are some low games that really are horrible. Okay, like that Crossfire X thing, right? But I'm sure there's other games that succeeded or that some people actually like. So just don't go based off of the scores. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. I hope to see you all on the next video.